back for this second part of the interview.
Well, thank you, Peter, for having me back.
As a researcher of esotericism, you spent part of your researches to ufology and aliens. What have you discovered that we need to know?
Well, first of all, a couple of things that you need to know. Uh, UFOs represent something very legitimate. Governments around the world know that. Highly intelligent military people around the globe in different countries, they know that. And there is a lot of people in different countries, and yours and mine, that are experts on that subject that know that they are real. While the vast majority of the people on the earth are not aware, and so they are easily swayed by people's opinions. And so I always like, if I'm going to talk about UFOs, there are a few things that we need to talk about first. And first of all, there's something that I call the crab syndrome.
Okay.
Because when I was a kid, as a kid, I grew up in Florida, right on the Gulf of Mexico. Used to go fishing as a little kid all the time, and we would also go fishing for crabs. And what we would do is we would get a big pot or a big pan, like a trash can maybe, something big, and fill it with ocean water and set it next to the dock where we're sitting and fishing. And then we would drop the hooks down with the food, and the crabs would grab it, and we pull them up, and the crabs would not let go of the food. So you don't have to worry about catching them. Once they have the food in their hand, they're not going to give it up. And so we pick them up, and then to keep them alive, you drop them into the container. So this way, they're still in their home environment. They're in the water, but they're not going anywhere because you've caught them. And so after a while, you've got a whole bucket full of crabs, and they're all obviously trying to get out. And but they all are crawling on each other to try and get out. And so once in a while, if it gets full of crabs, once in a while, one of the crabs might almost be getting out. He might almost be out. And I would tell my dad, I would tell my father, well, that crab is going to get out. And my dad would say, no, just leave him alone. He won't go anywhere. And it doesn't, because all the other crabs will grab onto him because he's the highest up and he's the one that's almost out. So they will grab onto him so he can pull them out. But instead of pulling them out, they pull him back in. And so the crabs themselves make sure that nobody gets out. And that's the way humans are. We're just like that too. We don't want to see somebody else successful and wealthy and driving fancy cars and having a very nice home and can, having beautiful vacations. We don't want to see that. We want, misery loves company. So we want to see that other people are like us, broke, unemployed, 5 kids, house payments, marriage on the rocks, and all the troubles that a human life can bring. Uh, you know, Generally speaking, people don't want to see other people who are doing just great. And so we pull each other back into the darkness.
Yes.
Now, now from that, we now go to science. Scientists are like that too. I mean, all kinds of professions are made up of humans, and so and all humans are alike. And so even in science, there's a whole thing in science where scientists do not want other scientists to be better than them. Every scientist wants to think that he is the top of the line and everybody else is nice, they're friends, we like them, but they're nowhere near as smart as I am. And so, that being the case, that's the way kids are in school. That's the way young teenagers are. They always think they know better than the parents. They know better because they're smart and they're cool and they're young and they've got good minds and good bodies. And the old man, the old grandfather, doesn't know anything. And so they pull themselves back into the pit. You know, once in a while you'll find a teenager or a scientist, or it doesn't apply to every single human, but once in a while you'll find a person who's either an adult, a scientist, or a writer, or a philosopher, or whatever, that is humble enough to say, wow, that's interesting. I want to know more about that. I never knew that. And talking to another scientist or talking to somebody who's got knowledge about something you don't have, and if you're humble enough, then you will not dismiss what that person is saying because you're obviously far more educated than him. You will listen to someone else's work, someone else's thoughts, and gain from them. Wow, I never knew that. That's interesting. I want to do some research on that. And then you find out, wow, I didn't know that. And then you begin to look at other things he tells you. And then you find out, wow, this is an incredibly interesting guy I'm talking to. He tells me so many things I've never heard before. That's a humble position. Unfortunately, most people are bothered with something, it's in psychology, we call it cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance means when you hear something that you've never heard before and it sounds stupid right off the bat, it sounds stupid because you've never heard such a stupid statement before, you've never heard such a silly subject before, and since you've never heard it before, it's obviously stupid. Why? Simple. Because you, not being humble, perceive yourself to be highly educated, a man about town, a world traveler. You know everything there is to know. You've had all the experience and education, so you know everything there is to know about everything. Well, pride precedes the fall. It is written in Scripture and has always been known. When you are proud and arrogant and know everything, that's when you're going to make mistakes and you're going to lose money. You're going to lose all kinds of things because you are arrogant, self centered, egotistical, know it all. And so, what I'm saying is, when you're dealing with a subject like UFOs, most people, probably a lot of people, are now believers in that they believe there is something going on legitimate. They just don't know it, what it is yet. Well, I don't think there's too many people on the earth that know what it is yet. There may be some out there that highly placed in government and science that do know, but they're not telling us. But generally speaking, all intelligent people on the earth who understand that there is more to our life than what we do, and that we don't know everything about everything. My God, we don't even know what's in the oceans of our own planet, much less in the universe. And I like the way that one astronomer said, a quote was beautiful. He said, the universe is not only stranger than you imagine, it's stranger than you can imagine.
Mhm.
Yeah, what is going on out there in space is so absolutely incredible. The size of the universe and the size of planets and suns. I mean, we look at our sun, it's so incredibly big, and in relation to our little tiny speck Earth. But that sun is a microscopic speck to other actual big stars, which are millions of times larger than our sun, millions of times larger. And there's only countless billions multiplied by billions of them. And when you start looking into deep space and seeing the billions multiplied by billions of galaxies and suns which dwarf our galaxy, it's just mind-boggling when you begin to look at the world for the first time as a humble, intelligent person investigating the truth of the life we live, instead of acting like you know everything. And so that's always been a problem when you're talking about UFOs, because there's a lot of people out there who will mock and laugh and about the the stupidity of anybody believing in UFOs until you do some research on those people, and then you find many times, which I have, the professional debunkers, the professional people who are always laughing and mocking hundreds of thousands of people who have had personal experiences of seeing UFOs and having one-on-one experiences with them. And then you have these professionals, people who come in and they laugh and say, "Oh, no, it was just a shooting star. It was just Venus. There's nothing to it," and they laugh and mock it. Then you find out, no, these people are hired and make their money working for the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, or the NSA, National Security Administration, or the other 25 or 30 alphabet agencies in America or around the world, especially in America. And so you begin to see, no, there is an actually well-financed, highly intelligent debunking going on to put people's minds at rest, that there's nothing out there to worry about, everything's under control. President Obama's got everything under control and everything's just fine. Unless, of course, you have a high school education and are blessed with a brain, and you'll know, no, there is nothing just fine. The world is marching itself to world wars again. There's violence all over the earth with murders and butchering people all over the earth, and drug addiction and wars and violence, families breaking up. The whole world is falling apart, and it don't matter what Mr. Obama says. Everything's just fine. Of course, everything's just fine with him, because he's on the payroll and lives very high with his limos and all the protection around him, and he is supposed to mislead you. And why? Because his masters, the people who own him and own the American Republic and own the country, they don't want the people waking up and asking questions, because there's too many people out there. And if you are the master of the house, and you own the home, and you're a farmer or a plantation owner, you don't want the 400 people who work every day out there in the yard and picking cotton. You don't want them getting together and finding out about your bank account and finding out about all of your dirty business that you're doing behind the scenes that nobody knows anything about. You don't want the 400 employees that are right there on your land finding out who you really are and how much money you're really making. You don't want that. So you make sure that they have plenty of alcohol. Make sure that they have a liquor store on every corner. Make sure there's plenty of liquor, and make sure the liquor doesn't go up in price. You can still buy a bottle of liquor almost the same price you could 40 years ago. Everything else has gone up, but liquor and bread stays at the same price. Why? Because you, like Rome, you don't want to give the poor working class people of the world bread and circuses. You want to keep them entertained. So the first thing you need to do is make sure they can eat, because people get very nasty when they don't eat. And the government's got enough problems trying to keep you stupid and occupied without having you getting hungry and getting violent. And so to make sure that the people of the country are kept stupid, ignorant, ill-informed slaves, the government will do well to make sure you have plenty of alcohol on every corner. You will have plenty of ball games, football, basketball, tennis ball, ping pong ball, kicker ball, soccer ball, golf ball, ping pong ball. It's always a ball game. So give the people ball games and make them and have them fight each other. One team is fighting the other team to be the best ball player. And make sure at all the ball games you have plenty of beer and whiskey and entertainment and sandwiches and stuff to fill your belly and then entertain you. So what I'm saying is, governments know that it is a very dangerous thing to allow the people to wake up and get an education and start thinking. Adolf Hitler said, no, the dictator in Nazi Germany, Adolf Hitler said, "Isn't it wonderful how most people don't think?" And I understand why he said that, because the German people, all they wanted was to fill their stomach and have a job. They don't care who their government's killing. They don't care about the war. Nobody gives a damn about it, unless, of course, you're going into it. But the people don't care as long as they see, hey, there's food now, and everybody's got a job, and we're all driving a nice new, Volkswagen car, and we got nice highways. Hey, just shut up, go with the flow. I mean, it's nice. Yeah, but he's killing millions of people around the world, and we don't care about that. We're happy. We're crabs in a bucket, and we're trying to get out of the bucket. And so the bottom line on all of this is I'm saying that most people do not want to see you succeed. They want you to be like them. And so that's why they tell teenagers, well, you need to get married. Yeah, you need to get married. And the guy at work who's not married, the married guys will say, well, when are you going to get married? And I got 5 kids. When are you going to get married? And myself, I always thought, hey, first of all, it's none of your business, Jackson, when I will get married. And second, I'm not like you. I don't come from the same world you come from. I was born with a brain. I do my own thinking. And I'm not interested in being like you. With 5 kids, a bad marriage, and a home, and in debt up to your neck, I'm not interested in being like you. I want to do something with my life, and I'm not going to sit in a classroom and have you tell me what I can think and how I can think and what to think, because schools always teach you what to think, but they don't tell you how to think. They don't teach you wisdom and knowledge and how to scientifically think about things. They just have books. You read the book, you answer the question, and you get a passing grade, and with that you get a degree, and now that degree is called a work permit, and now you can go out and get a job because you have you answered all the questions correctly, and so now you have the whole truth. What you don't realize is that the country you live in and the system that you live under has been around for hundreds of years. And even in Canada, like America, it has a history going back a couple of 100 years ago. You need to know about what's going on between the French and the English people in North America. You need to know about the wars and the violence between races of people, and how the government has survived and come to be what it is today. So all of this I'm saying is that most people dealing with UFO subjects, it's called cognitive dissonance. If I'm telling you something that's absolutely true and provable, but you've never heard it before, you're probably going to think it's stupid. Well, my feeling about that is this. If you're supposed to understand something, if you're supposed to get it, then you will. And if you're not supposed to get it, then you won't. So I don't care if people believe me or not. It's nothing to me one way or the other. I'll just tell you what the truth is that I have seen with my own eyes and can testify to it in a court. And but I don't care if you believe me or not. I don't care if you understand it or not. And when you come to the word understanding, I may have said this before, but I'm going to say it again. To the word understanding, the way to grasp what that means is this. Suppose you have a two-story building. You own a two-story building, and you're going to put a lot of weight, like printing presses and automobiles and whatever. You're going to put a lot of weight on the second floor as a museum or something. Well, the smart thing to do would be, of course, would do first of all get a building inspector and go downstairs and go on a ladder and remove the ceiling tiles downstairs and look at the foundation of that floor and see if it's going to hold that kind of weight before you go putting weight on that second floor. So what you're doing is you're standing under the platform you're going to build on. So you're standing under to get understanding. That's where the word understand came from. You stand under the subject and see the basis for it. So that's when you begin to say, well, maybe there is something to, giants on the earth that I never even thought of before. Well, yeah, when you're seeing that mining companies are digging up bones, which are human bones, but they're about 8 times larger than your bones in your body, but they're the exact same bone, it's just 8 to 10 times larger. And therefore, it's easy to figure out if you find a leg bone or any kind of a bone in the body, in your leg or arm, and you find it somewhere in a mining, going down into the earth, you find it and it's 10 times larger than your human body bone, then that means the person was 10 times bigger than you. Obviously, because you're holding the bone in your hand. And so, it's going to be very difficult to have cognitive dissonance when you're sitting there looking at a human bone which is 10 times bigger than yours. So obviously, somebody was here 10 times bigger than you were a long time ago. And so the whole subject, and that's why I wanted to preface this whole subject of UFOs with the obvious that people need to realize just because you're hearing something that you've never heard before, it doesn't mean it's not true or that it's stupid. It doesn't mean that you're superior because you've never heard it before, and obviously if it was important, you would have heard it. Obviously not. Governments keep secrets all the time. Your government is keeping all kinds of secrets that you don't know about, and that's why they are the government and you're not. They know what's going on. We have something in America called the intelligence agencies, CIA, which is a Central Intelligence Agency. Why? Because like all other governments, America is not interested in what its experts believe. In America, we don't care about what this expert or that person believes. We want to know. Period. Bottom line, we will tap the phones. We will tap anywhere. We will do whatever it is we need to do to find out the real truth about who this person is, or that person is, or what this company is. We have a central intelligence agency, and they deal with things with subjects and people and all kinds of nefarious ways of checking on you to see where you go and who you meet, etc. And your government too. Why? Because they don't want to believe that you're a nice guy. They want to find out for damn sure who you are at the airports and trains and anything else. They want to know what you're doing. And so that's the way I have always looked at things. I don't care what other people think about different subjects. I want to know. And we've talked about that before in the last show, I think, where I said that if you go to a new church, Christian, you go to a new church, and the people there in that church don't know you, they will say to you things like, "Oh, are you a believer? And how long have you been a believer?" That's what Christians are referred to among themselves as believers. There are radio shows and TV shows, the Believer's House of Faith and the Believer's Hour of Faith. And so they're calling each other believers. Well, that word believer implies you don't know anything. You believe. So we can't use you in a trial. We can't, if it's a federal trial and a man's life is hanging in the balance, we're not going to have you come in because you believe that he's guilty. We don't want that. We want to know. We're going to have cross-examination, and you better be right in what you're saying because the other side's going to pick it apart scientifically to prove you don't know what you're talking about. So again, I'm prefacing all of my comments about UFOs with general knowledge about how the world works. So when you talk about UFOs, understand they are real. There is a legitimate subject of UFOs and extraterrestrials. Of that, there is no doubt. And, that now once you have established in your mind that UFOs are real, you may not know what they are. You may not know where they've come from. They may have come from outer space. They may have come from under the earth. I don't know. Wherever, pick a place. But they're here. That's the main thing. Now, who are they and what are they doing here and what is the ultimate, at the end of the day, what's the ultimate reason why they're here? I don't know. And I've talked to very highly placed military people in my world that I live in. And they will tell me, yeah, you're right. We know. We've caught them. We know. We have these aliens. We've had some of them who are alive and some who have died. We don't know exactly. They tell us we've learned how to communicate with certain ones, and they will tell us where they're from, and they will answer our questions the best they can, the way we talk as opposed to the way they communicate. But they will answer our questions, and we know that they're here and they're talking to us, but we don't know for sure because they are liars. It's like you in the military, and if you're behind enemy lines and they catch you, they're going to question you. You know as well as I do. You're not going to tell them the truth. You're going to tell them whatever they want to hear, but do it in such a way that you don't give away your government and your fellow soldiers. So that's the way the scientists are, and that's the way people are. You're not going to tell the real truth. And so that's why the military people I know that I've talked to, and some of them are very high up that you wouldn't imagine that I would even know. And they have told me, yeah, we know where they say they've come from. We don't know for sure. We know that they are not here to hurt us, or at least that's what they're saying. But we don't know. We're watching them. And so all I would say about UFOs is I have personally with other people, had personal one-on-one experiences with extraterrestrial life and UFOs. I have been privileged in my life to be in the company of extraordinary scientists, physicists, and plasma physicists who have had one-on-one experiences with extraterrestrials. So there's no doubt in my mind UFOs are real and their inhabitants, obviously, if they are some kind of a craft that implies somebody made them. And if somebody made them, they don't necessarily have to look like you. They're intelligent. They operate the way they do. They may not do it the way you do it, but then, of course, they're a lot smarter than you. That's why you haven't gone out 100 light years from the Earth and gone to some other planet. But they have. They've come here, which right off the bat shows they're smarter than you are. They're smarter than your whole government is. Your whole government, with all the best minds working on it, don't even know where these people have come from. We don't even know where these creatures have come from or how they. We're trying to back study, back engineer their craft to figure out how these things work. How in the world can aliens or entities from other worlds come here? From hundreds of millions of miles away. How in the world could they do that? I mean, we're proud to show ourselves that we can get off the earth and put a satellite up. Yeah, but that's nothing like going from one universe or galaxy to another. You're just going over the earth. That's big and impressive to us. But if there are alien life forms who are coming here from other universes out there in the great expanse of the heavens, then you better back off and think about this. They may be very, very powerful and very, very sly and are lying to you just as we would if we went into, a white man when he went into Borneo and New Guinea and all of these ancient places in the South Pacific and whatever. The people there, the native people there, saw the Americans come in with big planes during the Second World War and have plenty of food, and they don't look like the natives. They're dressed differently. They're different color. They have high technology, lasers and televisions and all kinds of bombs and armaments. And the people in the forest in the jungle see these Americans and these Europeans and think they're gods from another world. Well, in point of fact, yeah, we're not gods. We're just smarter than you are. And we are from a different world. Yeah, I'm from America. You never heard of it, and don't worry about it. And so it very well could be that there are aliens coming here from other places, and there's a lot of science to back that up. And there's a lot of very important people in the world who have been given the job of studying this subject and studying who they are, these extraterrestrials are, and how they got here, and to study their craft. And all of that is just a beginning to the subject of the UFO. It's something that is so important, but it has been kept under wraps for so long. Obviously, here's two good reasons why the government would not want you knowing about the subject at all and would laugh and mock you. Here are two very good reasons. One is that the one institution on the earth that causes people to be able to live together, because we're just humans, and it's a gang. You got the Canadian gang that's against the American gang. And we, as a gang, love each other, so we are against the German gang and the Russian gang, but the Chinese are dear friends with the Russian gang, and so the bottom line is we're humans. We're just animals like any other animal. Excuse me, and we travel in packs, and we always, always looking at the other side and the other group as evil. So the bottom line is there are extraterrestrial life here. They are here. Um, Science, government has some of them right now alive. Um, it's extraordinary how much the governments of this world know that they've never told you. Let me give you another example of how pervasive this thing really is. Steven Spielberg has made so many movies about extraterrestrials and aliens. Why? Logic alone would tell you that Steven Spielberg is a lot of things, but stupid is not one of them. Ignorance and stupidity is not one. He's obviously a very bright guy, and he's not going to spend his time, his life, the money in Hollywood to produce nonsense. He's above that. He has said in his own words, I heard him say in an interview once, I don't make movies to entertain people. That's not what I'm doing. I make motion pictures as comments on social subjects. I'm commenting on the reality of certain subjects of war. I make movies about that, telling you what it's really like. On racism, I make movies about that, what it's really like. And UFOs, I'm telling you what it's really like. So it's not just entertaining. My question is, can you imagine how much money it would cost if you were going to finance Steven Spielberg and George Lucas to make a 2.5 hour movie? Have you any idea how much that would cost? Because they're going to go all over the world, and they're going to have the best of the best on the earth, period. But they're going to produce the best of the best. And so it's going to cost money because it takes money to make money. So have you any idea how many millions of dollars it's going to cost you in the hundreds of millions? It's going to cost you to do the Star Wars series or the Indiana Jones series. Have you even an idea about how much money Spielberg and Lucas are going to be spending to make these movies? Well, think about this. Steven Spielberg made a television series called Taken, 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 and it was 19 hours. Over a period of a week and a half, there was a 19-hour television series called Taken. How much would it cost to finance Steven Spielberg for 19 hours? Somebody put up a lot of money to a genius who spends money like it's going out of style to make a television series on extraterrestrials who steal and kidnap people. That's what that 19-hour television special was all about. About how extraterrestrials are here, how they work with the big governments of the world, and how they are working with individual people. And it's an extraordinary, and I've watched it a couple of times, all 19 hours. It's a brilliantly presented Steven Spielberg special. But again, who would put up the money for 19 hours on something that's just lunacy? It's just, if you're going to do that and you're going to make a Mickey Mouse movie, make one and entertain the people. But you're going to spend hundreds of millions on a 19-hour television series with Steven Spielberg on extraterrestrials and UFOs. And besides, the very name of the series was called Taken. And that he based that whole series on a lady who died writing a book. She wrote a book called Taken, and she was a doctor, a lady doctor who was really brilliant doctor. a lady doctor who did a lot of research on the extraterrestrials who are operating in our human society. She did such an incredible job on explaining what governments are doing and how she knew and the stuff she wrote about that Spielberg was reading her work, her book, and decided to make a whole series out of her book called Taken. Her name, Doctor, I can't remember right now, but you could go on the web and order the book called Taken, and that's the one Spielberg based his movie on. I'll think of her name in just a minute. But anyway, she wrote about the fact that extraterrestrials are here, and I was going to say, and I need to get back to it, that there are two major reasons why the government does not want you knowing anything. Because the government, there's a word for government. I don't remember exactly how it's spelled. I've got it written down. It's called parent patria, or something like that. Parent patria. It's a word used in law. So lawyers will probably know what I'm talking about if they hear me. Parent patria is a word that is used for government in the Western world. In the Western civilization, we call government parent patria, or however how you pronounce it correctly. And what it means in a law dictionary, it says that the government is your parent. That's what the law says. It comes out of British maritime admiralty law, on the United States admiralty law. The bottom line is that the government is your parent. It's like your mother and father. It sees to your needs. It educates you. It gives you a job and gives you food to eat. It takes care of business for you. And so, but the government being a parent, which is a term in law, means that they are in control, not you. You're 4 years old. They're adults. And so they know that you need to be fed, so they will feed you. They know that you want a bicycle, so they'll get you a bicycle. They know that you need to go to school, they'll send you to school, but they'll do it their way, not yours. They are in control, not you. And so they also are not going to let you watch certain movies or certain things or hear certain things because you're a child and you don't need to hear what the adults are talking about. So you go out and play ball, and anything you need to know, we'll let you know. So you just have fun and go play ball and drink your beer and watch a basketball game. And that's all you need to know, because the governments are your parents. And so there's a PTA, a Parents Teachers Association, and it's a big club, and you ain't in it. You're the kid. And so you are not in the big club. And so the government is not telling you everything. They will tell you only that what you need to know. So I guess all of this being said is a prelude to looking at the subject of the UFO. You need to understand that you don't know everything there is to know about everything, and you are looking for trouble when you are self-centered, egotistical, pompous, and arrogant, and you know everything there is to know about everything. Because like I said, even the scriptures in the Bible said that pride precedes the fall. And so I've said so many times to my professional friends, do you know how many airline pilots have lost their ass on the stock market? They have lost tremendous amounts of money on the stock market. Yeah, but these are brilliant men who are airline captains who fly, big commercial airliners, and they're very highly educated and very protected. But they've lost a lot of money on the stock market. Do you know how many doctors, brain surgeons, uh, some of the best doctors in the world have lost money on bad deals, on real estate deals, or all whatever, wherever they're investing their money, and then they find out it folded. So the point I'm making is just because you're an airline pilot doesn't mean that you know everything about mining or art or sciences. You know what you know, and you're good at what you know, but that's all you know. And so I would say to everyone listening, just because you've never had a UFO experience does not mean that it doesn't exist. It just means you are not aware of it. Now, I have had my own personal UFO experiences many times. And so I can just tell you, again, I don't care if you understand or not. I can tell you they are here. They are not of this world. And one thing that is provable, as far as I'm concerned, has been proven to me over and over again. So it's not even a discussion about it from my viewpoint, is that there is a life form on this earth that is not like us. You cannot see it. You're not able to see it or communicate with it. It ultimately is smarter than you are. We call it in religion, in the churches and religions of the world, including the Jews and the Islam and all the other religions, have as a major feature of their religions, all the world religions have as a major feature the fact that there are spirit entities, spirits, demons, devils. The Islamic call them jinns, and when you go into a liquor store, you're going to buy a bottle of gin. That's the same word that the Arabs use for spirits and demons and devils are called jinns. And you're going to buy a bottle of gin, and it's referred to as spirits. Gin is a spirit. I mean, even in a liquor store. And so if you buy liquor and alcohol, it's spirits. So what I'm saying is that there is, in point of fact, life here, but you don't see them. They're smarter than you. The fish in the fish bowl and the ants in the ant hill do not even know you exist. You can mess with them. You can kill them, stomp on them, pour acid down the ant hole and kill everybody. You can do all kinds of things, and they will never, ever, ever know what happened because they don't see you. They don't have eyes to see, and they don't have brilliant people to intellectually explain to the ant that you're going to stomp on the anthill. And so I'm just saying that when you deal with the subject of UFOs, you need to realize that you don't know everything, and don't put it down. Don't disregard other people's experiences. Yes.
Why jinn or devil? Why not angels?
Yeah, well, I'm just saying that's a word that the Islamic people use for angels are called jinns. Um, but in Christianity and Judaism, we have many words for what I'm talking about. They're called poltergeists, which incidentally, Steven Spielberg made a whole series of movies called Poltergeist. A poltergeist is a spirit entity, a demon or a devil, or demons, more than one, demons and devils, and they are evil, and they can do things to you, and you can't stop it. You can't do anything about it because they're smarter than you. You don't see them, and they have powers to do things that you can't do. And so Christianity calls them demons, devils, angels, spirits, ghosts. Uh, then there's another whole subject that we could get into that's really interesting in that respect, and that is the sons of God. The Bible talks about the sons of God. Well, Anyone who has studied the subject knows sons of God are not angels. They're not demons. They're not devils or poltergeists or spirits at all. They are actual living physical beings. And the Bible says in Genesis that these actual living physical beings like you, but they're not from here. They're called sons of God. And we're told in the Bible, in Genesis 1, if Christians and Jews are listening, we're told there that the gods, well, let me go back and lay a foundation for this point. In the book of Genesis 1:1, you read in the English Bible, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Well, that's not exactly what it says in Hebrew. It doesn't say that exactly. What it says in Hebrew is, in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. Because in Hebrew, God is translated for us as El, E-L. So the word El is God in Hebrew, one of the main words for God. Now, there are different depending on what God you're talking about, or different translations of the word. There are many, but I'm saying the general point is that the word El in Hebrew is God, but that's not the word that was used in the Hebrew Bible. It's not El. It says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Well, look up the word in Hebrew for God, and you will see it's Elohim, not El. That's a different word. Elohim, the idea of putting Elohim on the end of the word Elohim, it's a plural. It means more than one. And in English, if you have a car, spelled C-A-R, but if you put an S on the end of it, now it means more than one. You have cars. Well, in Hebrew, El is God, but Elohim is a plural, meaning more than one God. And so in the beginning, correctly stated, correctly understood, the scripture says, in the beginning, the gods made the heavens and the earth. And this is why when Moses was being given the 10 Commandments, God says to Moses and writes in the 10 Commandments, I am the Lord your God, and thou shalt not have strange gods before me. But wait a minute. Go back and read it slowly. I am the Lord your God. Not the only God in the universe. No, I am the Lord your God. And I shall not have strange gods before me. What that is saying is that there is a personal God that the Hebrews picked. And so I am the Lord your God. Not the God of the Hindus. I'm not the God of the Africans. I am the Lord your God, the one you chose. And I don't want any of the other gods occupying my space. Well, I mean, that's what the guys tell the girls when they're going steady. Yeah, you know a lot of guys, but I better not catch you with one of them. We have a deal here. I'm your man and you are mine. So don't be messing around with other men. Well, it's the same thing God is saying. There are many gods, but I'm the one you picked. So I'm the Lord your God. And I will not have you messing around with any of the other gods. And so now we establish that there's more than one God, and they're all equal. Well, then that would explain later on when God is creating Adam and Eve, the scripture says, I didn't say it, the scripture says, God said, or the gods plural, the gods said, come, let us make man in our image after our likeness. Come, let us. Who's us? Well, there's only one God. I don't think so. You better go back and read it correctly. It doesn't say El in Genesis 1. It says Genesis 1:1. It says Elohim, more than one God, and they're equal. And so when it says God said, or the gods said, "Come, let us make man in our image after our likeness." What that is saying is that there is a group of gods, and they're talking among themselves, and they're saying, "Hey, let's make a creature that looks like us and has our qualities. We're crazy, so we'll allow him to be crazy. We're powerful, so we'll allow him to be powerful. We're handsome and strong, we'll allow him to be handsome and strong. We're wise and intuitive, we'll let him be wise and intuitive." And so, we are moved by pity, by by sex, by pity, by anger, by all of these things that bother us. Yeah, we'll put that into the man. So he's bothered by all the same things we are, and he does exactly what we do. So now he has become as one of us. And then the scripture goes on to say, a couple of scriptures later, it says, looking down on the earth, they are seeing what they have created. That's us, the mess that we're in, and they're saying, look what here man has become as one of us. Look what we have done. Look what we've done. Man has become as one of us. We're fighting and killing each other and always angry at each other. All the gods were vying for power. And now look what you've done. You've created a creature called man, and he's just like we are. He's about as crazy as we are. He's developing all kinds of bombs and technical technology that kill people and to subject other people. That's what we've been doing for millions of years. And so I'm saying that what we're being told in the Bible in Genesis 1:1 and in Genesis, there's all kinds of scriptures in the Bible talking about the gods who created us. And something else you need to remember is that in Genesis, I think it's Genesis 9:1. Genesis 9:1 in the Old Testament, the scripture says that God said when Noah and the ark, and the story of Noah and the ark, and it says that when the ark came to rest on land after the great flood was over, the ark came to land. God says to Noah and his wife and 3 sons and their daughters, there were 8 people, which is Jewish mysticism. There's a very good reason why there was 8 people. But God says to Noah, after the flood, let's go back and read it in Genesis 9:1. God says, God says, go forth and multiply and replenish the earth. I talk with rabbis over the years about this. God is saying to Noah, after the flood has gone, after the flood subsided, and there's land, God's saying to Noah and his family, all right, I've destroyed everybody. I've destroyed all the evil people, except the fish. They didn't care. But I destroyed all the people. And now there's only going to be 8 people on the earth. So I want more people on the earth. So he tells Noah and his sons and their wives, go forth and multiply and replenish the earth. That's in 9:1. I asked the rabbis many years ago, back in the early 60s, is that a correct translation when it says go forth and replenish the earth? Because the word re means do it again. Re. And they said, yes, that is the correct translation, to replenish the earth. Why? Well, obviously, if God has destroyed the earth and all life on it, and if he wants life on the earth, then you're going to have to redo it again. So go forth, he tells Noah, go forth and multiply and replenish the earth. Well, that makes sense. And I then said to the rabbi, no, not necessarily does it make sense. Go back to Genesis 1:28 in the first chapter when God is creating Adam and Eve, the first couple. And God says to Adam and Eve, the first couple, go forth, multiply, and replenish the earth. It's the same Hebrew words. So why is God telling Adam and Eve to replenish the earth? Do it again. Obviously, when the rabbis and I've talked, they said, well, obviously, life has been on this earth for millions of years, and every now and then, the Creator, the gods, the Creator, decides that we have become so confused and so evil and so violent that they have to just get rid of us and start all over again. And so that's where I think that's where we are today. Today we are the most violent, bloodthirsty, ignorant, stupid, self-centered, egotistical, lying, corrupt. I mean, it's everywhere. Corruption is everywhere. Stupidity is everywhere. Ignorance, violence, blacks killing blacks in Africa, whites killing whites in America. People are killing each other, raping and plundering, and thank God we've got drugs and alcohol and heroin and all the other to help us get through the day with all the drugs and the alcohol because we're insane. We're acting like animals on the earth, and now it's getting worse, as you can tell. And so the Bible is saying that that when God was creating Adam and Eve, he said, replenish the earth. Do it again. Well, that now begins to make sense. That's where what we're talking about is all the ancient temples, incredibly beautiful, enormous temples that are in the ocean of the world. There are huge temples off the coast of Okinawa, out in Japan, out into the middle of the Pacific Ocean are enormous temples. In the Atlantic, there are pyramids in the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Cuba. The Cubans and the Americans have taken pictures of these enormous temples. In the Indian Ocean are huge temples that have been found under the ocean. And you've got to ask yourself, what is that all about? Obviously, there are huge temples, and they were made by somebody. And of course, when you have these oil companies drilling for oil, like in the North Sea off the coast of Ireland and England, in the North Sea, which is horribly violent sea, they send their pipes down for the oil. Well, first of all, they got to go all the way down till you hit the ocean floor. Well, that's a couple of miles or whatever it is. Then once you hit the ocean floor, now you've got to turn the pipes automatically and cut into the earth. That's why they have diamond cutters on the other end of the pipe, so that they can cut now into the earth. And so now they're drilling and going down inside the earth, which is on the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. And of course, the stuff that is coming up through that pipe that they're cutting into is coming up through the pipe, and we are now finding handmade artifacts in the way down under the Atlantic Ocean, handmade artifacts. And I'm thinking to myself, is anybody home? Is anybody listening? Handmade artifacts under the ocean? What does that tell you? Is there something going on about this earth and its history that we don't know? Yeah, I think you better go back and learn that, you haven't got it all yet. So there have been, as a matter of fact, in South Africa, listen to this, in South Africa, there was a mining company quite a few years ago who drilled way down into the earth. They went way, way down, miles down into the earth in a mining company. And down at that particular depth of miles and miles down, all of paleontologists around the world agree that at that particular depth, the you're talking about strata. That strata was at least 3.5 to 4 billion years old. And in that strata, that is 3.5 to 4 billion years old, that all paleontologists agreed upon. Obviously, at that depth, is almost 4 billion years old. They are bringing up handmade artifacts, handmade artifacts in strata, which is almost 4 billion years old. What is that telling you? If you are not stupid and self-centered and egotistical, and not too bright, but if you've got a brain that tells you somebody was here on this earth and they knew metallurgy and they knew how to create metals and create artifacts 4 billion years ago. So what does that do for? And again, this goes back to what I was going to say, and I still haven't got around to saying it. Why is it important for the government to make sure you don't know any of this? Again, it's because two things. Government does not want you knowing about these things it's because religion is the one thing that people are involved in that they are quiet. As long as you give the animals something to do, then they will be happy and they'll be quiet. Give the children, the babies, and the kindergarten, give them some games to play and pretty things to play with, and they'll be quiet and they'll be happy. And so religion has given people the false sense of everything's just fine. The Lord loves you and God loves us, and everybody's happy and will always be happy and free. And so the governments want you happy. They don't want you in the street unhappy, like I said. And so people who find out that there were higher, far, far more intelligent life forms on this earth 4 billion years ago, which may, hundreds and hundreds of millions of years ago. That will be very disturbing to Christians because they know the whole earth was created by God and He loves everyone. God loves everyone. Then you come to find out, no, you better go back and look at the real history of the earth and find out where the word God comes from. Because in English, God is dog spelled backwards. So anyway, I'm just saying that the subject of UFOs is very legitimate and very frightening once you finally are initiated to the real truth. They're really here. I don't know who they are and what they ultimately want to do, but I can tell you one thing for sure. You can see their hand in everything. You can see it in movies, television. I mean, if you look at the human race for the last, say, 150 years ago, where we were riding on hearts and donkeys, horse and carriage, and bow and arrows. Today, we're walking on the moon with the technology, all the highest technology that we are capable of. Where did we humans get all of this technology from to build lasers and televisions and computers and all kinds of high technology? Where did we get that from? We're not that smart. Somebody is telling us what to do. Let me tell you one more thing that's important in relation to this. Nikola Tesla, one of the greatest minds that ever lived. Most people have never heard of him. One of the greatest men that ever lived on this earth in any age was Nikola Tesla. And he gave us electricity, television, radar. My God, he gave us all kinds of stuff. But when he was like 85 years old, and he had given the world electricity and radio, it was Nikolai Tesla who invented radio. And but there was a big dinner to celebrate his life and his life's work in New York. It was in the papers back then. He was 85 years old, and they were having a big banquet for him. And after the dinner, Nikolai Tesla gave a short speech to the audience in New York, and it's in the newspapers. You can go back and get the microfilm, and read what he said. Nikolai Tesla, one of the greatest minds and inventors the world ever knew, he said of himself, he said, my inventions of light and radar and all the other stuff that I've given to the world was given to me by higher intelligence. He said every night I would leave a notepad and a pen at my night table next to my bed, and in the morning I would wake up and there was a new invention, all written out, not in my handwriting, but very clean and clear handwriting that I could read easily, explaining how to build this, how to build that, what to do, what it means, and why. And I would just take it after breakfast. I'd go over to the laboratory and take the pad, and I'd start to build what I was reading on the pad. And then I came up with radar, or I came up with radio, or I came up with lasers, I came up with all kinds of lights, I came up with all kinds of. I didn't come up with anything. He said it was always in a pad. And every morning I would get up and there was another, and if I had a problem with something, the next morning the problem would be all written out, what the problem was, so I could go fix it. So he says, I'm just letting you know that, I am delighted and been blessed to be, who I am, but I don't mind telling you, it was all given to me by someone far, far smarter than I'll ever be. They gave me all of my inventions. They wrote it down for me. And well, that's why you have television today and radio today and radar and lights and the what do you call it? Alternating currents, computers. It's all Nikolai Tesla's work that we are now happy to use in our modern day, but nobody seems to realize all of this stuff was given to him by somebody while he slept. And that tells me that whoever it is, they're still messing with us today. Somebody is messing with the human race, and the government does not want you to know it. That's bad for religion, and it's real bad for business, and it's extremely bad for government, because when the people find out the government is not the most powerful on the earth, there's something that you can't see that's far more powerful than your government, and your government knows it. And so, when you find a gang in Chicago and they find out Al Capone is 100 times bigger than you are, well, they don't want their gang knowing too much about what Capone's doing, because he's far, far more powerful than you are. And you want everybody in your gang to think that you're the boss. Well, that's the same thing. Government does not want you to know about UFOs because, first of all, it hurts religion, and it scares the people because they know their government is not the ultimate authority on this earth. And now we got a big problem. So that's why education today is to dumb down the people. Give them plenty of beer, alcohol, lunacy on television, stupidity, and ball games, and everybody will be happy. Nobody will know anything, but everybody will be happy. So that's why I do what I do. I try and educate people to tell them how much they don't know. And being an old man, I talk too much.
Like you said before the interview, Jordan Maxwell, ufology and aliens are huge subjects. And,
Oh, enormous.
and
Enormous.
Unfortunately, the show isn't 8 hours long.
I know.
So,
Yeah, we'll have to do 8 shows then.
so once more, Jordan Maxwell, thank you so much for your presence today. And
Uh,
I will contact you soon in
yeah.
few weeks for the third part of the interview, maybe the last. I'm not sure. Maybe you have.
No, no, yeah, it won't be the last one. Believe me, we got plenty of things we could talk about, plenty of stuff.
And,
So, the world is far more interesting than you know, far more fascinating than you even begin to know. So, there's always going to be plenty to talk about. And again, Pete, I want to thank you for allowing me to be on the show. And also, I would say to anyone listening, go on my website. There's a lot. There are different websites out there with my name, Jordan Maxwell, on it, but there's only one legitimate Jordan Maxwell website that represents me, and that's Jordan Maxwell Show, SHOW. Real simple, Jordan Maxwell Show.com. And on that website is you will see a banner that says Research Society. And that Research Society, if you click on it, is just a new website on my Jordan Maxwell Show website. There's a new website called Research Society, and all it is a new website with all of my research materials, books, articles, audio, video, links, all kinds of subjects you've never heard of before, pictures, research volumes, all kinds of free ebooks. I mean, an enormous array of occult or hidden knowledge about the world we live in. So again, I want to thank you for allowing me to talk about my website, jordanmaxwellshow.com, and be happy to let's do it again.
so Quebec, thanks. Thank you for your wisdom, Jordan Maxwell.
Thank you for allowing me. Good
Goodbye.
night. Bye bye.